This is Talk the Devils, the athletic show dedicated to Manchester United. Coming up today, guess what? We are going to pour over every single detail of that 90 minutes at Old Trafford on Saturday as Manchester United beat Manchester City in the Manchester derby. Pulverised, you might say, according to Laurie Whitwell. He can explain that one in a moment. Lisandro Martinez has had a nibble back at some of the critics, so we'll talk about the dynamic around that. And we'll also ask the question, what's next for Michael Carrick? How exactly do they build on this, and what does it mean for the club moving forward? Then again, it was just a game. We do need to keep it in context somehow, but it feels good on Monday morning. Laurie, like I say, is here. Also, Andy and Carl. We've had so many messages. My apologies that it's only just coming to you now, this show. I think people wanted it the second that match finished on Saturday. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do that, but hopefully you can still enjoy the next hour or so, or however long it goes on. People were asking for 2-hour podcasts last week. I guess there's probably even more reason to do that today, but it won't be 2 hours. But how are we doing, everyone? You okay?
Oh, what a day. What a week. Have a great week, everyone.
Yeah, Adash has seen Andy Mitten smiling, though, which is a good thing because he's been waiting for the show, but he's been watching Andy on YouTube, and he said, I've never seen Andy smile like that before. It's just wonderful. I love what one match can do to a man. Andy, you still smiling?
Yeah, I think every United fan was smiling after Saturday. It was perhaps unexpected. It was much needed. It's been a turbulent couple of weeks in the Manchester United world. It was only a week ago that we were really, really flat after going out the FA Cup to Brighton. So to beat Manchester City is always a big deal. To beat them by playing so well, so convincingly well, made it even better. I thought it was Manchester United's best performance of the season. So many other things went into play. All the teams around Manchester United got beat or didn't win, and Liverpool didn't win. Arsenal, Villa, Newcastle, loads of them. Manchester City didn't win either, in case we didn't know that at the weekend. So United fans enjoyed that, and there's not been enough of those moments this season, and it was a really special moment.
It feels like there's not been enough of those moments for several years, let alone this season, when you feel the power of what a result like that can do and how happy it can make people. I mean, Laurie, you were getting maybe a little bit carried away on social media again. Pulverised, great word, but yeah.
Absolutely pulverised them. Well, if you look at the number of chances, what did City do? They had one chance that Lomans and Dalot sort of combined to just about scrape away. But that's why I think it was such a uplifting performance. I mean, the result in my eyes is 3-0 anyway, because I've still not seen evidence to refute Mason Mount's cherry on top of the icing, on top of the cake goal to finish it off in injury time. So I'm calling it a 3-0 victory. But you've also got two more really close offside goals. Harry Maguire hits the bar. Casemiro, has a wonder save from Donnarumma from 2 yards out. Ahmad hits the post, which I think also was a great save from Donnarumma, to be honest. Bruno nearly set up and boom, in the first half. They were just all over them. And I think that's what, gave me such enjoyment. I was at home watching it with my dad, which is actually a nice sort of counterpoint to being in the stadium as a journalist sometimes, because obviously you can't celebrate really in the press box, whereas this one was absolutely a sort of unadulterated celebrations with my dad. And I just thought the game plan worked perfectly. And the fact that City were so well beaten, and I know they had, sort of injuries and the back line was very young, but I still think that even when they got into the final third, United just had all the answers for them in terms of City pass, and never really having any penetration, whereas United was all about the penetration. And I think massive credit has to go to Michael Carrick and his staff, and maybe even Darren Fletcher before that, because I know he had two results that didn't quite go his way, but the kind of some of the seeds were maybe sown there in terms of Patrick Dorgu playing on the left. I thought that was a key point in Michael Carrick's system, and obviously he gets the second goal. But that's why, I actually do count it as one of the best performances in years, to be honest. I know you're saying I'm probably going to get away here with myself.
I agree.
To do it so comprehensively, and people were sort of saying the FA Cup final against City, as a rival to that. that was a sort of different type of performance. Sort of more. It was a great performance, certainly, and a fantastic game plan. I think City certainly had the I don't know, should we say the bubbles from the champagne of the title win still coursing through their veins, perhaps, as a bit of context for it. So that's why I just thought this one, in the context, with so much pressure on the situation, and for United to do it so brilliantly, I thought was it'll be long remembered.
Carl, what was it like to be there?
Oh, it was glorious. Absolutely glorious. The noise in Old Trafford was a real contrast to how quiet it was during the game against Brighton. Within the first 5 minutes, Harry Maguire, when that header hits the back post, there's that big, ooh, and then it slowly builds and it slowly builds and it slowly builds, and the crowd is going, this is on. And then you can see the players go, this is on. It's a Manchester derby. You don't need any extra motivation to get at City, to run and go for it. And there are 2 or 3 bits. There's proper needle there as well. So when Maguire's in the trench with Bernardo Silva right in front of the Stretford end, look, these are scenes that nobody likes to see, but I was sort of cackling like a madman in the press. Was like, yeah, get it. Yeah, that's what I want. And all the right ingredients, all the nice things. And for the last however many months, and I'm not just including Ruben Amorim's time, but also some of the stuff towards the end of Eric Ten Hag, it felt a little bit like an existential crisis. Who are Manchester United? What is Manchester United trying to do? What's going on? And then you just get this one glorious 90 minutes and you go, that's Man United. That's what they do, right? That first goal where it's Bruno Fernandes running and it's just 3 lads ahead of him, sprinting, busting it out, and you're going, make the right pass, make the right pass, make the right pass. And how many times the last, let's say 20 months, has that been on and the pass has been wrong? Then pass it to the wrong person, or the pass has bobbled up and it's not gone to the person's right foot, and you're like, oh, for the love of Pete, you can't do it anymore. And it's the great pass. It's the proper pass. It's even maybe a disguised pass, because I thought it was going to go to Amad on the right, and it gets it to Bruno just at the right time. And then it goes in, and then the noise. What
a finish that was as well.
Life is good.
Could you see it from your press box, Carl, where, because as soon as the shot happens, you can see it from the angle, maybe, that it's going in?
Yeah, it cuts across you as well. So you're going, please pull the right side of the post. And you're going, the noise. The noise after that was brilliant. Town was absolutely buzzing afterwards. I took my missus out for dinner that evening, and someone pushed in front of us in the queue. So we were like table for 2, and then someone wanted a table for 4, and someone pushed right in front of us. And, my missus like elbowing me, like, aren't you going to say something? I was like, nah, sorry. I'm still really, really happy about what's going on at Old Trafford.
That's probably quite a nice way to sum up how people were feeling, that it didn't really matter what happened after the game. That smile couldn't be wiped off people's faces. Let's get into some of the detail of it if we can, Andy, because looking at it now, it feels completely different. But actually, in the build-up to the game, it felt like a really complicated situation for Michael Carrick. He'd only been in the building for a few days. The players had only had 2 or 3 days to work with him. He's trying to get across a completely new idea. There's brand new staff. It is the Manchester derby, and I alluded to this in the last show, that I was convinced people would get up for this because it was almost the perfect game to galvanise everyone and bring everyone together and push the issues aside for 90 minutes and then, think about that again after the match. But how did he do it? How did he produce that performance from those players?
I think one of Michael Carrick's virtues is very calm. I also think he benefited from being new. So I said last week that there's this cliche, a breath of fresh air. And that's not because it's Michael Carrick or it's against Ruben Amorim. Whenever there's a new manager, whoever it is, because the last manager has invariably left amid tension, whoever comes in benefits from players who've not been being selected going, I've got another chance now. And multiple sources told me last week that training was good, that the mood was good going into the game. And it was a cliche, and I saw Roy Keane taking the mickey out of that cliche. But what do you want me to do if you hear stuff like that? If people were saying the mood was on the floor, I would say that as well. And I wasn't hearing that. I think Michael Carrick went back to basics with a lot of the stuff, certainly with the formation that he chose. You made some pretty bold moves, starting Patrick Dorgu ahead of Matheus Cunha, dropping Benjamin Sesko, who's been playing well, starting Kobbie Mainoo, bringing Harry Maguire in, I was told that Casemiro was outstanding in training last week. I think we saw that on Saturday. We can argue who the best player was during the game, but he was absolutely in the top 2 or 3. And United started well. And then City had like 5 minutes after about 10 minutes. But at half-time, I was thinking, I hope United don't run out of energy. I hope, because we've just seen it happen in so many times where United have actually played quite well, but didn't score. United kept putting the ball in the net, kept getting those offsides. City were having more of the possession, and yet United were creating much better chances. And I think with that grew belief, and then rather than get worse in the second half, United got better. And there were top performances all over the pitch. That old Fergie adage that you need 8 of your 11 to turn up, well, I think 9 or 10 of them did. I think they were exceptional performances everywhere. And you're right to make the point about City's defence. And maybe Dalot was fortunate to only get a yellow card. But United were awesome. It was a brilliant performance, and it was a brilliant result. And from Michael Carrick's perspective, clearly he enjoyed it. But he just wants to go again and again and again. And we've been worrying about the quality of the players at Manchester United, and we've got to bring X player in or Y player in this position and that position because central midfield is a real issue. On Saturday, the midfielders were among the very best players for Manchester United. I still think United are going to recruit. Of course they're going to recruit, but just goes to show that a new coach comes in, sees things slightly differently, and has a good team around him as well. I don't know Steve Holland. I've never spoke to him in my life, but I saw images of him celebrating in front of the Stretford end thinking, bit of a Man United fan you on the quiet, aren't you? I know we said that on the podcast last week. I said it was the Stretford ender last week. I got it wrong. He went home and away. I've had people coming forward going, he didn't just go home games. He went home and away with Man United. So all these little asides, and we can smile about them after a win. And I'm sure the lads will talk about the individuals who caught their eye. But it was an awesome performance.
Yeah, that was exactly my next point. Who did catch the eye? Because we could list a lot of players, but who stood out to you, Laurie, most?
I think you have to give Bruno Fernandes huge credit just for the way it was basically like a 4-4-2 really for quite a bit of the time, certainly out possession, and Bruno being that person that pushed up alongside Mbeumo really, and then winning the ball high, and it just really unsettled City, didn't it? And he was, I think, always on the edge of trying to test them, and that pass for Dorgu in the first half, well, it looked like it was maybe going to Mbeumo, and then he obviously got the shout from Dorgu, and he ends up having a good shot that's well saved by Donnarumma. I mean, that pass just didn't even look on, and then he sort of dug it out. Yeah,
the scoop switch.
Flat. Yeah, but he's got falling over as he's doing it. And then obviously, as you say, Carl, there correctly, to be at that kind of speed and to pick the pass at the right moment for Mbeumo. So yeah, I still have great admiration for Bruno Fernandes. And then sort of second to that, I'd probably say, I think you've touched on Casemiro certainly, but Kobbie Mainoo, first start in the Premier League this season. It sounds mad, doesn't it, that was his first start in the Premier League, and he has to deliver now because obviously so much has been made of his situation. But for me, he did against Man City. I know that wasn't absolutely perfect, but the way that he was able to get in the mix and do the job that he needed to do, win the ball at times, and certainly play some key passes. The way he sent Semenyo back to Bournemouth with that body swerve, I thought was, a kind of eye-catching moment that really gets the crowd up for it and re-energises them. When you're sort of a little bit uncertain as to which way the game's going to go. Okay, here we go. Right, we've got players that are quality on the ball here, so we've got a chance. And so yeah, I would pick out, I could pick out more. Harry Maguire, sorry, I will let somebody else speak in a second, but Harry Maguire as well, starting his first match in 10 weeks, and then I think he was only supposed to play 60 minutes of the game because he had a hamstring injury, then I think a bit of a calf injury, so he was certainly was somebody that they had in mind for sort of managing their minutes, as they had done, Bruno Fernandes at Burnley, for example. But I suppose it's a little bit easier to push beyond the scheduled time slot when you're maybe in defence. But I thought he was absolutely fantastic. Shielding United's back line. In fact, it was his header, wasn't it, that set up the counter attack that Mbeumo then touches and just. So is that a pre-assist for Maguire? I don't know. And then I'll let somebody else perhaps talk about Lisandro Martinez next to him, because obviously he was the focus of a lot of attention and came out with it absolutely, having enhanced his reputation.
I think you're bang on. This is not. Everyone was good. I've said before that we've had too many 6 out of 10 performances this season. I don't think anyone dropped lower than a 7. That was superb football in so many different facets of the game. Bruno Fernandes was a coach on the field. Not only was he doing all the things in possession, but there was a moment in the first half where Donnarumma has the ball at his feet and he's kind of uncertain as to what to do. And you could very easily go, let's flood forward, try and press high and win it. And then you know how City can hurt you very, very quickly. But there's a moment where Fernandes, closest to the centre circle, just puts both his arms up in the air, gives the order, and everyone just drops. And they drop en masse in a speed that Ralf Rangnick wanted, Erik ten Hag wanted, Ruben Amorim wanted. But maybe it's because it's the Manchester derby. Maybe because it's Bruno Fernandes being the one to give the order. And they just drop so quickly. And as they're doing it, Mainu is coming top speed. And Fernandes just points, no, you have to stop there. Point, you have to stop there. And like, this is it. This is the on-field general that you need. This is the person who's going to get you from point A to B and make sure that this victory is going to be, you're going to keep City at arm's length throughout the entire game. There were so many things he did in that match which were just phenomenal. Casemiro has a hook tackle partway through the game. So the ball is closer to the United, he's side on side with a City player and the City player has the ball. The ball is closer to the United goal and you're going, okay, you've lost this 50-50. And he just goes to the ground, hooks his right leg, nicks possession off. And it's one of those tackles that most United players can't even conceptualize. And I think most defenders in the world will go, this is too risky, you're going to get a booking. And he's done it, and it was perfectly timed.
Just thinking about it, it's the same tackle that he did against Chelsea and did get a booking for, isn't it, really? But he absolutely nailed it this time.
So, and it's those tiny moments that for far too long United haven't been able to do. So you go back to the pre-assist from Maguire. Very, very clever. Head the ball back to Ryan Cherky. Now. Why not? Very, very clever to head it back to Ryan Cherky, who he's more of a lover than a fighter when it comes to dueling for second balls. But Mbeumo still has to get the flick on. And the flick he gets to go, no, this is mine. We're going to do the counter-attack now. I'm not going to lose this. Time and time again in that derby, United were quickest to the second ball. And this is the Premier League now where it's all about having a scrap, fighting for those second balls, aerial duels, and they were just uniquely suited for this moment. I think City expected things to be flat and they just ran into a brick wall. Bang. Got you.
It definitely felt like that. I'm glad you mentioned the touch from Mbeumo, Carl, as well, because Matt got in touch with us an email, said just wanted to make sure that the Mbeumo touch to guide the ball to Bruno to start the attack that led to the goal doesn't go unnoticed, because it was sublime. Ahmad and Mbeumo were a brilliant feature of Manchester United's attack, using Mbeumo through the centre again. Innovation from Carrick. We'd not seen that in quite that way before, and it really worked. And then it'll be interesting now to see what happens next against Arsenal, how he then changes the attack when they play teams like Fulham at home, when maybe the onus is on Manchester United more to break them down. But we'll worry about that in a bit. We'll talk about what happens next just a little bit later. Andy, we need to talk about, it was a week of criticism, it was a week of scrutiny, it was a week of a few overt digs, really, from former players towards Michael Carrick, towards some of the playing staff as well. The one comment after the game which was reacted to was Lisandro Martinez when he was asked about Nicky Butt and Paul Scholes' criticism of him, exactly what they thought Erling Haaland was going to do to him in the Manchester derby. And he decided to have a bit of a nibble back and say that he'll meet Paul Scholes wherever he wants, whenever he wants, type thing. And Scholes then responding on social media saying, "I'll have a cup of tea with just one sugar, please." So, what do you make about all of that?
It was a very Argentinian response. I would have done exactly the same if I would have been him. there's a lot of frustration among the players, and if you're going to hit back, do it after a Manchester derby. There's a very good article by Danny Taylor in The Athletic on Saturday about this whole industrial complex of Manchester United ecosystem, and I've touched a few times about monetizing misery. I've said a few times I tend to get far more calls from media outlets when Manchester United lose a game rather than win a game. But I'm only speaking to friends of mine last week. There was a lot of anger because they feel that people are attacking something they love, and what they love is Manchester United Football Club. And Lisandro Martinez clearly felt like that at the weekend. I think critiquing and commenting on a player's performance is absolutely fine. We do it. We praise when they do well, and we criticise when players don't do well. We'll do that over pretty much any aspect around Manchester United. It's if it's perceived to cross the boundaries and becomes more personal, that's when it becomes far more contentious. So Roy Keane was criticised strongly last week for bringing in Michael Carrick's wife, although she had mentioned him a decade ago. I've said a few months ago, when family members start commenting, it tends to end badly. But I think there's just this saturation coverage where Manchester United players feel that they're being picked apart all the time, day after day, because there's so much interest in it, and it's global interest, and that doesn't make their job any easier. There's a very good interview with Christian Eriksen 2 or 3 weeks ago in the Times, where he talked about how weird it is playing for Manchester United because you're compared to the greats. And he said, it's not fair as a footballer. Every single player is compared to, but you're not Cantona, you're not Berbatov, you're not Roy Keane. And which players are? And I know that parts of Manchester United's recruitment have been paralysed by a reluctance to make decisions, because players come forward and it's like, he's good, but he's not as good as David Beckham is. And who is? Manchester United are not the preeminent force anymore. We see that in league tables. We see that in Manchester United missing out on Antoine Semenyo. Nice choice there, mate. How was your first derby match? And it doesn't make it any easier. Now, you can say, if you're going to play for United, you should be able to accept all the pressure that comes with that. But there are times when it becomes wholly unreasonable. And we've seen that. And from United fans as well. And there's frustration that comes with Manchester United not doing well. And this season has been very turbulent. I keep using that word, real roller coaster, complete failure in the cup. And we're all on a high at the moment. And United are just about on par for that European finish, where we should make a proper assessment at the end of the season. But I think it a lot of Manchester United fans off.
Laurie, what do you make of it all? Because I think last week was noisier than ever, really, when it came to everyone having opinions and so on. And I guess that's natural when you've had the sort of period that United have had. But the opportunity for players to bite back, I mean, we've not seen much of a response from the squad publicly to some of the comments. And, you were in Michael Carrick's press conference on Friday and saw him not really react to what Roy Keane had to say in particular. So it's not going anywhere, this, is it? This is going to continue no matter what. Even if United are successful, there'll still be people sat commenting on it. This podcast will still continue no matter what, So I don't want to be too sort of hypocritical in a way, but obviously the power of some of the former players' words is unquestioned, and you do wonder, how this plays out. I kind of think that if United are successful, it supercharges it, the opposite of what maybe has been happening at times. What do you think?
I genuinely think that if United win, you will get people praising them. You will get these former players enjoying it. I hope so, certainly.
We might see this week, I suppose.
Well, there we go. I mean, I suppose the caveat is it is one game, right? And they're still, in an interim manager period. There's still all the sort of questions we had last week are still valid. But
yes,
nevertheless, I think a victory like that does just give you a bit more hope and a bit more optimism about what these players can achieve. And certainly, if you finish the season in the Champions League places, you kind of go, well, okay, that season ultimately has it's not a success in historical Manchester United terms, but it is a positive step forward in what this club should be about. Obviously, former players can kind of say whatever they like. It's not on me to sort of say otherwise, but I would say that Keane certainly has got a long memory. It kind of felt like the verbal equivalent of the Alfinger Haaland, tackle that he'd obviously decided to make, after remembering what he'd been said to him in 1997. So, and obviously Haaland, when he got subbed with 10 minutes to go, that was quite an enjoyable moment, I think, for fans at United in the stadium. Bizarre that that's how it ended ultimately for City. But yeah, Carrick, I was in his press conference, as he said, and he just is not going to get involved in any of that. I just can't see how he ever responds to it. I mean, to be fair, Ruben Amorim certainly, spoke a lot, didn't he, and got into all kinds of topics. But whenever it was the sort of former players, he never really went for that either. He sort of said, that's up to them. Okay, the one time he did have a shot was as his parting and said, if you can't handle the kind of criticisms of Gary Neville, but I think that was more of a message to other people than his own personal view. But and as far as Lisandro Martinez, I'm totally fine with him. It's good. You want players with that kind of character to have a bit of a bite back if they feel that they've been personally attacked, which clearly he had been in terms of his sort of record against Haaland as well, because he has actually got a pretty decent record against Haaland. And there was that moment, wasn't there, in the second half when there's a high ball and he actually does outmuscle him to get to the ball first and kind of come away with it and advance with it. So certainly he, I think, felt emboldened to have his response said publicly, and that's fine. I guess it's just then you've got to build on that, haven't you? And to Andy's point earlier, you've got to go again and again and again. This can't be a one moment sort of hurrah where you kind of doing victory laps. I think you have to kind of keep it up. But certainly it was a good performance that I think can be replicated in certain matches. I know that the City dynamic is a unique one, particularly with the style of play, particularly with the fans sort of being up for it. But hopefully that can be sort of moments in that. Certain relationships on the pitch can be developed as the season goes on.
What have we missed out, Carl? Have we missed anything out?
Let's talk about Patrick Dorgu and the second goal, shall we?
Oh, Adam, yeah. 2 words. Ballon D'orgu. I like that.
He's been putting it together. He's been quietly really showing me that he gets the quality to be a Premier League player, have some sort of value and be an asset to this squad. I thought in the defeat against Aston Villa, he finished strongly. He's got a kick rush game to him now where he's going to use his pace more than, say, 1v1 trickery to get past the defender. And then when he does get into those zones as a crosser, he's either got a big looping pass towards the back stick or he's going to try and skim it towards the penalty spot, which is nice as a sort of creator. And then just that effort to get across Rico Lewis, who, okay, maybe isn't the best Premier League defender, but the fact that he went, I'm having this, I'm going for it, and I'm going to beat you to get to Cunha's ball, really, really enjoyed it. I think he's been working really hard and well-deserved. Well-deserved for him. I didn't really think he'd be getting these minutes as a left winger, but he's certainly finding a way to make himself useful, which is nice.
Yeah, do you think he is a left winger now? Or do you think this is just him, that he can be used in multiple ways, multiple formations, multiple positions, depending on the game, depending on the opposition?
I think he's got a skill set now that is useful in more than one position. I think that's useful, especially in the Premier League where you've got teams that play in such disparate ways. Playing against Manchester City is a very, very different challenge to playing against, say, Sean Dyche's Nottingham Forest. So if you've got a player who can offer something for both kinds of opposition, that's nice.
I think Dorgu on the left is an interesting point, right? Because I think Ruben Amorim first started him as a right wing back, and that he had actually played on the right for Lecce, but it was Darren Fletcher, wasn't it, that put him on the left against Burnley? And I think part of the reason for that was because Luke Shaw, as a fullback, perhaps can't get up and down the pitch all the time as you'd like him to. So you've got a bit more defensive solidity with Dorgu, who certainly can put that athleticism in. But I do think it gives United a certain balance to have at least one wing where you've got the kind of outside foot being your strongest one, because that first moment I think set the tone where they did it with Dorgu, got the ball, by the touchline, whips it in first time, and it was I think Kusanov that got across, but Mbuma was waiting and deflects it behind for a corner, which probably I think was the corner right where Maguire hits the bar from. So and just putting City on the back foot, and I think that's what Dorgu can perhaps give you on the left. But certainly, you know, I've questioned him since United signed him. He's young, he's obviously raw and still developing, but you're sort of thinking, okay, I can see why United went for him last January with that sort of all the different aspects to his game, and it's an interesting one that Carrick's now started him in his first game in that position, and just on that really quickly, actually, he does this quite a lot, doesn't he, Carrick? I say quite a lot in his 4 games as Man United manager, small sample size, but
he's done it a lot in those 4 games, though, Laurie. So
there we go. Thank you. You are backing me up a little bit again with my hyperbolic nature, but. Yeah, Rashford and Bruno were left out of the Villarreal lineup. Then Ronaldo gets dropped for the Chelsea game. So Cunha and Sesko being out, and Sesko not even getting on the pitch. You know, Carrick's not afraid, it seems to me, to make these kind of big calls. And if that means Dorgu is your starting left winger because you think that's the best person for it, then that's what he'll do.
I think Dorgu was one of the best players on the pitch, and it wasn't isolated. He was exceptional in the first half against Newcastle. A couple of weeks ago. He's raw. That word that Laurie used is absolutely key, but some of his crosses are splendid. There was a crossfield pass to Ahmad just before the hour, and I'm like, whoa, but he's tenacious. The way he got in front of his man to score in front of the Stretford end, I see massive potential.
He puts a shift in every time, and it doesn't always come off, but you can't really question his hard work. He's not afraid of graft. And I think that will keep him in and around the starting lineup, not just throughout the rest of this season, but probably next season too.
I spoke to him a month ago, actually, for half an hour. And someone at the club went, you spoke to him for half an hour? Because he's not a man who chooses
you
to
doing
speak
29 minutes of speaking, Andy?
For half an hour.
He is a shy lad. He is definitely a shy lad.
He's a
very
shy
young,
lad, yeah.
isn't he? Yeah, he's
but
still
I did
very
say,
young.
what's your best position? You played as a winger in Italy, left back at United. The coach, i.e. Ruben Amorim, said it might be an intention to play you on your right. What do you prefer playing? And he replied, we play free at the back, so I'd like to play either on the left wing back or right wing back. Maybe I like to play down both wings because I like to attack the box, and for it to be, I like to be in the last third a bit more. I like playing as an attacking left back. I like making deep runs. I've played in lots of positions in my career, so I feel like I can do a lot. I can play anywhere. So I went, what, goalkeeper? Like you do Schmeichel because he's a Dane. And he went, no, but I have actually played there once in a competitive match. So he can even play.
Has he?
He can even play in goal. I'm delighted for him. He's not even been at the club 1 year. And moving from southern, sunny Italy to Manchester at the start of February was really difficult for him. I know he's from Denmark. I know the weather's more Mancunian than southern Italy, but it was a huge culture shock for him. And these young players coming from abroad, they need time and they need support. And not every United fan was patient with Patrick Dorgu. We got a lot of stick at times, which again went beyond the pale of fair criticism when somebody doesn't play well. I'm really pleased for him. I think there's a huge potential there.
Going to say very quickly as well, the finish. I know he obviously had to show the energy to get in front of Lewis, but to then actually apply that finish as well, not easy.
Do you know, though, that whole energy of the second half attacking the Stretford end, we talked the other week, didn't we, about the Manchester United way and DNA and, all these different aspects that are being poured over at the moment as well. And I think, Carl, you said it earlier on in the show, that's it. That feeling watching the team attack in that second half. Transitional, who cares? I know Pep maybe had a little bit of a dig on that, possibly in the post-match. Although maybe it was a compliment, I don't know, because his team in particular, do struggle against transitions that are quite as ferocious as United were in that second half. But that's it, that feeling, that is Manchester United, and that is now obviously something that needs to continue. Just before we talk about what's next, Laurie, what do you think Ruben Amorim would have made of that performance? I feel like we should mention it, really. Yeah,
because if you're being absolutely brutal, does it expose what Ruben Amorim was trying to do, because it felt like it was, as you say, a bit more of a throwback. Could he have engineered something like that? Still possible, because I think you look at the away performance at Anfield this season, which certainly had some tactical tweaks that were smart and shrewd and ultimately went to the heart of what Liverpool would struggle against. But I don't know, it felt like just much more of somebody coming in and going, right, what is the actual best team in this particular game? And I don't have any doubts that might then change as we go along, even against Arsenal, perhaps. Maybe Seshko does start that game, for example, if you need a bit more height at set pieces. I mean, I certainly think Casemiro and Maguire, you can't underestimate their presence because of set pieces, both defensively and in the opposition box. But it feels like Carrick will certainly adapt his approach as we go along. I don't think every game will be, that kind of 4-4-2 shape. I sort of asked him this actually at the press conference, in terms of clearly a lot of focus has been on the relationship with Jason Wilcox that Ruben Amorim ultimately, the tension became too much from his point of view, and Carrick sort of gave a bit more of a collegiate approach in terms of his answer, sort of saying, we will discuss it with my staff. And I certainly think the Steve Holland aspect is interesting, particularly with his defensive nous. I think for England was a big factor. So, but there you've got, other people around it, such as Johnny Evans, who knows the players, knows their qualities, has been around it for 2 years. So I think whilst for him personally might be at the very start of his coaching journey, he certainly understands, I think, the positives and negatives to different players, and I think that's why he would be a good addition in this setup. And Jonathan Woodgate, obviously, is someone that Carrick knows and trusts from Middlesbrough. So what would Amorim be thinking? He might be thinking, see, I knew they could do something like that. I don't know. He might be thinking, where was this kind of energy level? Because I think you're right in that the sprints, Carl, were significant. I think there was a stat, wasn't there, where the top 4 sprints by players in the match were all by United players by a significant way. And Ahmad in particular, I think, was in that right wing position, having to, at times, almost operate as a wing back, because he was having to get up but then get back, and real energy about it. So maybe Amorim would question that. But at the same time, I think you can also question then, was the right kind of session being put on and with the right kind of personnel being selected to generate that. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one as we go along. If United sort of revert to type as they have been at times this season, then you can maybe ask different questions. But certainly from that match alone, it does sort of, it makes you think, I wonder what other matches could have gone a different way had sort of tweaks been made.
Yeah, I think the energy and intensity point, Carl, is interesting, because I can remember Amorim saying several times when questioned about the shape and formation, we don't need to change shape, we just need to up the intensity. And I know it's the Manchester derby, and I know it's maybe a special circumstance because there's been so much criticism, so much noise, and everyone wanted to respond to that, and the fans wanted something to stop them thinking about all the problems for just a little while, and contributed in a huge way to that game and pushed Manchester United's players into that performance. But there did feel like a real uptick in aggression as much as anything. And how many times did you see tackles flying in and challenges being made in the first half in particular, where you were like, yeah, I can get behind this. And we've not seen that for ages. I didn't even realise we'd missed it so much until I started to see it happening and people flying into stuff.
It's the there's a clip going on social media of a throw-in Luke Shaw takes, and then the United players basically just do a rondo around Cherky.
Yeah, it's good that.
Bing, 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 bing. Yeah, it's bing, 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 bing. And then there's 2 or 3 moments where United are just one touch pass, bang, 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 bang. And you're going, where was this? Where was this in May? Where was this in Bilbao? Excuse me. And maybe it is the derby. Maybe the derby brings you clarity of purpose, where you're like, okay, I'm not sure I'm going to make the jump, but let's see if I can flap my arms really hard and I can turn out to fly. Maybe if you are Ruben Amorim, you can make the argument of, hey, Bruno Fernandes is a lot better picking the ball up in deeper areas because of my tutelage. Mainu's got better at defensive positioning now because of my tutelage. Dorgu's figured some stuff out because of my tutelage. If you want to make that argument, we'll see. I'm just really glad United won.
There's a clean sheet as well. There's not been enough for them.
Yes,
this
I
season.
didn't realise that until about 6 p.m. when my friend went, we kept a clean sheet, and I just burst out laughing.
United have conceded 32 goals this season. Arsenal have conceded 14. So it was really important to keep that. And United are 5th. I've only lost 5 games, only I say. Every one of them really stung. But Liverpool have lost 6. Manchester City have lost 5. Aston Villa have lost 5. Chelsea have lost 6. It's not the losing games which has been the bigger problem. It's the drawing matches. If United would have only beaten those games where it was so frustrating to watch at Old Trafford, Bournemouth at Old Trafford, Wolves at Old Trafford, West Ham at Old Trafford, I hope we're not cursing those results too much at the end of the season, because they felt really bad at the time. And I think ultimately they cost Ruben Amorim his job, because the arguments came after that Wolves game, and it wasn't unrealistic to expect Manchester United to beat Wolves. That said, Wolves have only lost or unbeaten in 4 now. But if United can somehow get a run together, it's difficult saying that ahead of Arsenal away, but there's not been a run all season. You get a run going together, then United do need more points to make that sort of 4th, 5th position their own. The points tally is still pretty low. And I know we're buzzing because we moved up to 4th on Saturday, but it's still a pretty low points tally compared to recent seasons, partly because everyone else is dropping points. But if Carrick can just get them to, go 4 or 5, 6, win 3 or 4 on the trot, then the mood which we saw lift massively at the weekend. It doesn't take a lot for United fans to be buzzing again and to have faith in players who they've really doubted.
Right, let's talk about what's next, because that leads us into it quite nicely, I think, Laurie. Ollie has emailed in, can we play like that every week? Well, I'll answer that, no, because I don't feel like United will play exactly the same way every single week. And I'd love to think that they can match the energy and intensity and all the things we've praised and talked about over the course of the last 40 minutes. But that's the challenge, I guess, isn't it? To try and be able to continue this now. Michael Carrick, in all his media, everything I heard him say after the game, there's the underlying message of not getting carried away, of keeping the focus, of keeping people's feet on the ground, staying calm like him. But he's got a hell of a job here. There's 16 matches left now this season. I spoke to a few people about the motivation of the Champions League, and people who know dressing rooms, who've been in dressing rooms before, former players. They say that when you're playing for a trophy, it's an individual target. You get a medal at the end of that. So, that's not something that you can replicate. It's not easy to win an FA Cup medal, for example. Whereas with the Champions League, it's maybe more of a team and a club target. So whether the same motivation is there for the individuals, I'm not sure. Maybe the fact that the wages, are in play is a question mark. For how much motivation that gives players, because obviously the wages drop when they're not in the Champions League. But somehow, some way, this has got to be galvanised further, hasn't it? It can't just be about Saturday. It has to be about these remaining 16 matches and what United can do in those games.
Yeah, I think when you beat Man City 3-0 at Old Trafford, then it just provides a perfect springboard for what's to come. But obviously, it is just a springboard. And if they can take that Mason Mount goal that was scored in the 95th minute as the finishing point, then continue that on into the Arsenal game, then fantastic. What I did actually really like was how Michael Carrick celebrated. He celebrated exactly like he did when he used to score goals for United. I know there weren't loads of them, but that little hop in the air and the little palm to sort of celebrate, and he looked like he could scarcely believe it in the second half. So, I'm sure he absolutely will, come back down to earth and understand, the nuances that are still to come in the campaign ahead. But I did quite like how unbridled his reaction was. And then you've obviously got Sir Alex Ferguson in the stands looking like a kid with a massive smile on his face. But yeah, each game now will be different. I suppose in terms of motivation for players, I think just getting back into the Champions League is a big thing. I think players want to feel that they're in that elite group where you do have something in midweek where you hear the music and you're kind of up against these top teams and you're kind of really testing yourself. So I think that is a big carrot. Yeah, I do think wages are a little bit of a factor as well, because certainly it's a pretty hefty amount of money for United players. It's usually like 25%, something like that. So yeah. I did this story on Casemiro before the game where his contract actually includes a +1 automatic trigger, so it was believed that it was in the club's favour, and it still is, obviously. But if he starts a certain number of games, then it triggers automatically, and I believe that total is 35. And so if he starts every Premier League game from now until the end of the season, then he will hit that. And if United are then in the Champions League, his wages go back up to, I think, £350,000 a week. So I'm not saying that I don't think it will happen, because ultimately the club don't really want to have Casemiro on those wages for another season.
Well, hang on a minute though. If he plays like that every single week,
when
it's
do you
going to be
drop him?
impossible not to play him.
Yeah.
No, you got to do the old Atletico Madrid Griezmann trick. So you start the game. So there was a bit where when Griezmann was on loan from Barcelona, the clause would have been triggered if he played a certain amount of, I want to say, 70-minute appearances. So Simeone and Griezmann had an agreement that just before the hour mark, he'd get subbed off. So therefore, the clause wouldn't be triggered. So if United
Griezmann
play
didn't
a
want
game,
the clause to be triggered there.
Well, no, Simeone made it clear to Griezmann that they want to keep him, but not on those wages. So don't mind if we take you off at the 59th minute every single time. So if United play a game where in the first 5 minutes, Ugarte starts, and then 5 minutes into it, Ugarte just gets subbed off for Casemiro.
They can't do that. That was like, what was that youth game that United played? Was it where you have to start with a certain number of youth players, and then they switched after 5 minutes?
That's the Robbie Savage innovation, I think, in that competition. I think
There we
he
go.
started that.
That's it. I think there's a West Ham. There's a game where they've got 3 games in a week, I think, or sort of. Sorry, 2 games in 4 days. There's like the West Ham game late, so they could maybe theoretically say, "Listen, he does need a rest."
I don't think you can drop him if he's playing like that.
Well,
I think
You are right, Ian. That was superb stuff, and the team. I think Ugarte played pretty well when he came off the bench. Actually,
they made a good pass, didn't it, at one point? Yeah,
he did. But you are right. A lot of this is midfielders on Casemiro, and that was the first time in a while that Casemiro was playing next to Mania, and I want to see more of it. So let's see.
He just earns too much money, Casemiro. If there was like a reduction of his wages, he's very, very popular. I got a message off someone who played in that position for an exceptionally good football club on Saturday, and he was raving about Casemiro, about his anticipation, his blocks, his distribution, which were flawless. Not fair to name the lad, but he was one of the best in his position in the world. I will name Nemanja Vidic, who was sat next to Alex Ferguson, wasn't he, during the game, and he was wearing a flat cap as if he's become Northern. And I'll name him because on Friday afternoon I got a message off him saying, "What are you up to?" And he brought his friend over from Belgrade, and he wanted to know where to go out in Manchester and where to walk. So I gave him a really detailed place. So his mate has now gone back to Serbia. He will know everything about the Industrial Revolution, Alan Turing, the railway stations in Manchester, the history of the town hall, the Abraham Lincoln statue in Manchester, absolutely everything. I'm sure he completely appreciated everything I told him, took it all on board, and he's now a huge advocate of the city of Manchester. You don't doubt me, do you, boys?
Not for a moment, Andy. And I'm sure the detail was even more extensive than what you've just explained. But just to ask the question, I don't want to bring down the mood too much, but we have been here before, haven't we? I can feel the familiarity of us getting a little bit giddy in our conversation. And I'm sure there's people who are listening and watching who maybe be a little bit cynical about the moment for Manchester United. So I feel like I should ask the question on their behalf in a way, Carl. We have seen this before. We have seen United get up for these big games and get these sort of statement results. But is there anything about this situation that makes you feel like this could be different? It's very early to ask that question, but what do you think?
No, I think that's a very fair question. I've just gone on my laptop now and gone, what happened the last time United beat City in the derby? And yeah, there you go, 2-1, 15th of December, 22nd December, lost 3-0 against Bournemouth. Then Boxing Day, lost 2-0 against Wolves. Then on the 30th of December, lost 2-0 against Newcastle. You're like, oh yeah, that was painful. We thought we'd turn the corner. I think Arsenal...
That was a very different Manchester derby win though,
very
Saturday, wasn't it?
Very, very different Manchester
Even
derby.
the circumstance of Rashford and Garnacho not being in the squad and the whole dynamic around it. It didn't feel like a perfect day in any way, that did it, even though United won?
Yep, I totally hear that. I think not every game's going to be a Manchester derby, but if you want another game that's going to provide you with loads of motivation to get after a team and to counterattack swiftly, playing Arsenal helps. All right, it's not quite 1997 anymore, but there still is just a bit of needle there. We saw that in the FA Cup victory last season that I remember what Harry Maguire called Kai Havertz. So there is a bit of needle there. Arsenal are probably going to win the Premier League title for my money. They are uniquely... Mikel Arteta is not as open when he sets his teams up in the same way as Pep Guardiola. So it's not going to be four lads just running forward for Manchester United in the same way that we saw on Saturday. But there are ways you can hurt Arsenal. There are ways you can get there. There are ways that Arsenal are going to hurt you. So you're going to have to play really, really well. And then we'll see what happens again at Fulham. I mean, it was only last week we were talking about how the mood ahead of the Fulham game was going to be really, really different and possibly full of fan protests, and I'll be really interested to see if there is a change there. I think United have something that they can build on. United have a little bit of belief. Carrick was asked about this, how do you take it into next week? And he said, well, that's the challenge. We've got to get consistency. And Andy has said repeatedly, this team has been too inconsistent for too long. So I can't say things are going to be amazing forever. And you're totally right. And I can't say that Manchester United are going to be able to play that every single week. There will be teams that go, no, you can have the ball. It's your turn to have 50% possession. And we'll see what United can do. But hey, there are bits now that we can look at and go, that is impressive. I want to see more of Mainu playing next to Casemiro because we've not seen enough of that this season. Ahmad is now back from AFCON. Mbumo is now back from AFCON. So your ability to take on fullbacks and try and break down those sort of deeper blocks, that should hopefully improve. Harry Maguire being back from injury should hopefully mean we've got a better set piece presence in both penalty areas, both when we're attacking and defending. So this is me to the camera on YouTube giving 2 thumbs up. And let's see what happens next.
Yeah, Andy, I don't know what's going to happen before that Fulham game, but I feel like, you know, the frustration, the sort of the issues that have been pointed out by the fan groups, I don't feel like they're going to go anywhere, are they? Even beating Manchester City won't dissipate that frustration completely, I don't think.
You're right to guard against an overreaction after one game and should also do the same after single defeats as well. The aim for this season is for Manchester United to be playing Europe next season. And that's when we make a proper judgment. And if United do not reach that level, then the decision makers, the coaches, Ineos, the Glazers, everybody should be criticised for that. And if Manchester United do reach that level, and if Manchester United were to finish in a top 4, then praise should also be attributed to the coaches, to the recruitment, to the individual performances, and we don't know how they are going to go. Some of the clouds above Manchester United have still not gone away. The Glazers are still there, for example. This issue is not going to go away until the Glazers are no longer involved in Manchester United. But the outlook has improved from a playing perspective. As Carl said, the lads are back from AFCON. Harry Maguire has come back in as well. Michael Carrick will have a honeymoon period. If results do pick up, I almost don't like the way the conversation's going to be going. Can he become the next permanent manager? And just take things slowly. We've got a lot of time to prepare for each games, which is another advantage. You know, there's no European football this week for Manchester United. We watch with envy. There's no merry month of May for Manchester United because we're out the FA Cup. There's no League Cup final next month because United went out in that disgusting result against Grimsby Town. But equally, the season is not over. There were people last week saying the season's over. Should name some of them, shouldn't I? This season isn't over. We'll all go into the Arsenal game at the weekend, keen to see if the derby was a fluke or a one-off. But United have got to finish in a European place this season. And if the team don't, then it is a failure. And if they do, then we'll nod along and say, well done. Recruit well in the summer and go stronger again next year.
Very early to have this conversation, very early to ask this question. Andy's going to tell me off, Laurie, but can Michael Carrick force himself into the conversation?
I mean, you know, when in your first 4 games as Manchester United manager, head coach, you have beaten Unai Emery's Villarreal, drawn at Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea, beaten Mikel Arteta's Arsenal, and now, as I said earlier, pulverised Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. I don't want to write anything off just yet. It would feel very unlikely, wouldn't it, though, just because of all the context to everything. And you would have a kind of natural inclination, a hesitancy, shall we say, to go down the route that we've been down before. Although, again, people would still perhaps say, actually, having Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, someone who cared for the club, in charge of the club, was still, I think we spoke about this on the podcast at the time, felt that if you could get that working, then that would be the ideal situation for any United fan. But yeah, the reality feels different to that, right? It's one game. Come back and ask me maybe, in May, and we'll see where we land. But because for example, if Diogo Dalot gets sent off early doors in the first half, does that game totally change? Now, it's been weird to me. I don't think that was a red card, by the way. I know I'm absolutely biased and whatever, but
I was quite shocked at how many people were so certain that it was a red card. Yeah, because
he doesn't.
I know what you mean.
He's mistimed it, and he's obviously studs are on Doku's knee, but it's not like he's actually tried to hurt him at all. It's just, anyway, it felt like an unfortunate one. So I could see, fine, if you get sent off, you can't really argue, but equally to say it's definitely a red card, felt a bit odd to me. But anyway, maybe that's because of the pundits that were in the studio. But but if that does go a different way, then it's red miss Monday today, isn't it? If United lose that game, it's absolutely, the world's falling in. We need to get the Glazers out, we need to get Ineos out, which are, again, still, valid thoughts given the damage that the Glazers have done to the club and the financial position that the club is in because of their leverage takeover, which is still something that can't be discounted. But instead, we've got red Monday because, it's supposed to be blue Monday, isn't it? The third Monday in January. No, it's red. We're happy. Anyone of a United hue is bouncing into the week because of what's gone on the Saturday. And so I think we're allowed in this season, in this sort of decade of, turbulence and uncertainty, to have that clear thought for the next few days.
Yeah, I think you're right. We can have a moment, can't we? We'll talk more about what happens next and that Arsenal game, of course, later on in the week when we record the next Talk of the Devils. But I just wanted to finish with some of the messages that you've all sent in, because we've had some lovely messages since that result and performance on Saturday. Owen, who watched the FA Cup final Derby win, presumably quite quietly with his newborn son sat in his hands and keeping his mouth shut, was cheering wildly this time with the same boy as a toddler. Russell, who wasn't able to watch because he was at a function. I don't know what sort of function was more important than the Manchester derby, but I'm guessing it was important, Russell. And he's now considering not watching for the rest of the season just in case it helped. So we'll see you next year, Russell. And loads of people as well going through some really tough times with family situations, with different issues in their lives. It was great to hear people got something out of that performance and that result against Manchester City. And hopefully there's plenty more of that to come in Michael Carrick's 16 matches, and then I can ask Andy Mitten all over again what he thinks about who should be, I'm joking, the next Manchester United manager. Let's leave it there. It was a good day Saturday. It's felt like a good podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. Carl, Andy, Laurie, thank you for your company. Thank you everyone for listening and watching along, and we'll see you before Arsenal. That'll be out later in the week. Enjoy the moment, enjoy your week. Take care, bye-bye.
Thanks for watching this episode of Talk of the Devils. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you've not done already. Like the video and also get involved in the comments too, and click the bell to make sure that you never miss an episode with myself, Andy Mitten, Carl Anka and Laurie Whitwell. There's also our social channels at TOT Devils on Instagram, X and TikTok. Thanks for watching.